Good morning everybody. Hello, welcome to another Facebook Live. I think I might nearly be on time today as well, so I hope I haven't kept you all waiting. I haven't done a full face of makeup, but I smell lovely. So I've actually put on my favourite perfume today. I don't know what yours is, but I love Chanel No. 5. Right from being a child, it reminds me of my mum. So one of my favourite perfumes, favourite smells. And the other thing is, sometimes when you're putting perfume on, you can't smell it yourself. There's another one called, Eternity by Calvin Klein. And I love the smell of it, but when I'm wearing it, I can't smell it. So I'm like that person that walks into a room and just everybody goes, oh my gosh, is she bathed in that perfume? Because it's so strong, because I keep putting it on so I can smell it. So luckily for you, I'm not going to overpower you, but I do smell gorgeous. I've got a giveaway for you. So I've got Daisy Hill, and I've also got the USB that goes with it. So that's going to be today's giveaway. And I've got a little list of things that you wanted me to show you. So it's actually really exciting because I'm starting to do things that you want to know about, which is great. So first of all, let's do Daisy Hill, because I've got that already prepped and here for you. So I don't know how you store your dies at home, but I store mine like this on magnetic sheets. And what I actually do is I've got the sheet and it's backed onto just a piece of board, any old board that you've got, that even if cardstock gets a bit damaged, I'll stick 2 or 3 sheets together just so that it's not too flexible, because of course when it's flexible they ping up. But that's also very useful, because when you've got a big selection of, let's say you've got a basic shape and you've got lots of different sizes, I literally just ping them up and then I flick through them like this until I get to the size I want, and then I can pick that one up. So that's another little tip for you. So I try and keep them like this together and then put item numbers and things on the back, so I know just if I'm flicking through them, because these will also go in a folder and you can literally just flick through them like that. So that's quite a useful little thing. So I know we talk about decoupage and charisma all the time. So one of the reasons that I wanted to come up with this as an original product was because for me, having really pretty designs it just makes everything so much more delicate. And I know I'm quite nifty with a pair of scissors, because I've learned over the years to actually be quite good with them. And actually I'll do a couple of scissor tricks today as well for you. And what I wanted to do was with this was come up with a way of you being able to see all of the detail that we would normally have on something that's been beautifully delicately cut. But as we say often, there's no way you could get into all these little pieces. That reminds me, I must do a craft knife class with you one week as well. So on the back of this, you'll see that there are lots of little cut lines. Now let me bring this to you and see if you can see this better. And here, if I show you this one as well. So when I'm trying to decide about snipping off, and we snip in, there are little pips that are holding it in place like this. And I check the back as a guide, because when you can see the print on the front, it sometimes is a little bit misleading. So I check the back and then make those little snips. So I'm literally trimming off the little elements. And that, in fact, by the way I've trimmed that, shows you that's the amount of bleed that we normally put on. So just to make sure that the pieces go together. But then if I were to tuck that leaf underneath, when I'm actually doing my shaping, that's going to make the difference. So I've got the window open today, so that noise you can hear is the blinds, so I hope you don't mind that. Right, let's take a look at a couple of other things that I'm going to do. Is seeing if I've got some foam on a roll. So this is a little bit thicker. So I've got 2 different widths, and I'm not going to work with, actually I should probably get some silicone. I'll see if I can get some silicone in a bit. I've got two different types of foam here, and I want to show you the thicknesses. So if I put them like this here, you can see the thickness. So one of them's 1 mil and one of them's 3 mil. Now, a lot of people like to snip their foam. I actually don't mind tearing it because it tears incredibly easily. When you're building up the decoupage, which I'm going to do for Daisy Hill, I want to show you how I would do it without using silicone glue. So first of all, shaping and embossing. So on TV, we just shape it with our fingers. That's what we have time for. At home, I like to look at some other techniques. So I've got a little embossing mat. These are cheap as chips. They're a couple of pounds on Create and Craft. And what I do is I put my design down, and now I've got a large ball tool, and I can show you. I've got a large ball tool, and what you'll see is how it's opening up some of these little areas, and those cut lines are in there for a reason. If I take a circle and I emboss it, and you'll notice this. Let me show you this on a piece of card, because this is really quite interesting. So again, I'll cut it out as a flower. So we'll just do a, not like scissors, we won't, they're my gluey ones. So I'm just like pretending this is making a flower, okay? And isn't that interesting? Look, you can see where I was using the gluey scissors, because they're a bit sticky and not very good blades, it's turning the card up. But where I use the other scissors, it's much smoother. How important it is to have the right tool for the job. So I'm now going to place this down on my cardstock, and I'm going to use my embossing tool. And I want you to see what happens. So just emboss it to make it fair. So on this one, you'll see all the little cracks that you've got there. And on the other side, again, it looks ugly. But because we've got those cut lines into the design, on the other side, it just shapes it. You just get that nice curve that you've got. So those cut lines aren't in there just as a fluke. They're in there to make it more desirable, make it shape better, and give you a more professional finish. So I'm going to go back in with my ball tool. And while I'm doing this, that's a plane if you can hear it. Oh, I wonder if they've come to take me away somewhere. I don't think so, but I think it might be a farmer spraying his fields. But have you noticed how quiet it is, and you can hear all the birds singing, and it's because there's hardly any traffic, isn't it? And then this week you start to hear the traffic a little bit more because there's more people out and about. It's really interesting. So what I'm doing is I'm shaping them, and depending on the actual flower. Now, I'm using these lines as a guide as to where I would want a petal to be really curved, where I want it to be rounded, where I want it just to have a little bit of shape, where I almost want it to go to actually splay out. So you can actually emboss from both sides. So by doing that, I've now got some petals that are actually embossed and curved out, and concave and convex. I can't remember which way is which, but this is the two curves. And then I've got this one curving out. But because of those creases, again, we've avoided all these little cracks. So that's part of it. I'm just going to hold this up a little bit so you can see. But now you can see the shape that I've got here, the shape I've got here, and this little bit of turning. I haven't worked on this piece, so I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to swap this ball tool, because this is quite a large one, and I'm going to come down to one that's about 3 millimeters. So I've got a little 3mm ball tool here. And even the little pussy willows, the little catkins, I'm just going to stroke those and get them so that I've just broken the fibres in the middle of them, and they're going to shape down. Just going to do my little leaves, and it is the smallest amount of marking that I'm doing, but it makes all the difference. Oh, you see, I don't know, this is the frustration, but if you were seeing this right up close, you know, like live, you would see that these are literally just slightly curved. The leaves are just slightly curved, and it looks so much more interesting than just the flat flower. And now I don't need the silicone underneath to be able to make that shape, because I've created it myself. I can use foam pads. So let me put these and do my just my lilies and finish those. And last week I had some lovely messages from you. One lady, I've got to try and remember, I should have written it down. She said to me, she said, oh, you know what, it's so nice to watch your Facebook lives because you're so ordinary, and you know, that's the nicest thing anybody said to me, because actually I'm one of you, and it's like we're all together. So that was like, that made me really, really happy, so thank you. Right, so I'm not going to tear, I'm going to cut. Oops. So let's cut a few of these off. Right, so let's say I need some pieces of foam that are thinner than this. If I do this, this is my sticky scissors, look what happens. It sticks to your scissors, right? So what you do, really, this is so clever. Get a little bit of foam that you've used, and I get the tape, and you put the tape so that it's on both sides, so that's not sticky anymore. And now if I take my scissors, look how I can cut it. It's covering it. They're such little things, but they'll make your life so much easier. Right, now this flower I've gone in the middle, because that's what the flower would look like. So look at the difference when I now use this embossing and I add it. So I'm going to put the foam pads in two places. So I've got a little bit of foam, and then the other thing, I used to use a craft knife, but you can use a pokey tool if you've got one. And then my little flower is going to go on there. And what I've got now is I've got it dinted in the middle. I can actually feel that indentation, and curving over there. I've got more shape there. It actually looks so much more dimensional. And then these are my lilies that are going in place. So I'm just going to pop those on. Cut myself another little square. Put that on. This is another thing as well. You know, if you need somewhere to store your foam, don't put it on the side of your table because it'll leave a sticky mark. Put it on the edge of one of your boxes, because it's got the tape on the back, hasn't it? Let me pull that tape back. Because it only touches it enough for you to be able to do this. Look, oops, except I've taken the tape on both sides. Oh god, all these tips and I don't follow them myself. Right, so another little bit there. Hello if you've just joined me. I don't know if anybody has, but I thought I'd say hello anyway. Right, let's just put that one on there. Take the back off that, that'd help, wouldn't it? Right, so now let's look at this. So I've gone out and then indentation, then curved again, then a full curve, then this way I've gone indentated, and then I've come out. So I've really got some nice decoupage there. Now I've got loads more pieces that I could be adding. This piece in particular I think I want to put on because I want to bring that second layer of petals right to the front. So I need that little bit actually going in, because it's to the back, it's right into the depth of the centre, and then I need this bit coming out. So I've got that going in and that bit coming out. So again, let's get a little bit of foam and let's put you on there. I think that will be enough. And then oh, actually I'll show you another little trick. So I've got 2 thicknesses of foam, haven't I? So I've got the 3mm here. I'm now going to put a small piece of 1mm on this side. No, I'm not with that bit. Oops. Didn't go right, that bit. No. It's got no sticky on the other side, so it wasn't going to work. Right, so 3mm there, 1mm there. Now, when I stick it on, I need that curved a little bit. If I take that off, yeah. Just holding it and curving it. Right, so now I've got the back of this, and it literally, it's coming right down, so it's going in the distance. The little bud is actually sinking into the middle, and at the front it's coming forward because it's slightly raised. So and that's a nice thing about doing decoupage. You know, I could spend 2 or 3 hours doing this, rather than on TV we literally do it in a couple of minutes, don't we? So keep on building it so you've got that lovely design. Right, the other thing that I've got here is, so this was the decoupage that I was using. So now I'm going to put this next to it, so that, in fact, let me put it next to it with that. So even these bits, you can see how they're more dimensional. So that little bit of shaping, and you can become a real expert in this. I've just touched the surface, but you'll start to understand which papers you use, which tool for. We'll get into it in more detail over the coming weeks, but it really does look effective. What I've then got here is I've got some pictures. So these are off the USB, and they're also part of the giveaway. And I've got different designs. So I want us to look at where I put my flowers. I can put them here. I could bring them over to this side. I've got a beautiful church that I've got here. I've got, ooh, whoa, it sounds like the wind's getting up. It's not, it is just the window clanking. That really doesn't work. I don't like that at all. I've got another one here, and I'm actually thinking that might look nice. So I'm going to go into my frame, and I'm going to take a look at my frame and look at what I need for the actual picture. And looking at it, I think that would work really well. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually cut this. I've got the machine on ready, and I'm going to cut it. Now, what you're going to notice when I cut this is that's not going to work, because I would have ended up cutting. Right, let me explain what would have happened. So, I'd cut this out. That bit will drop out, but it'll only be that size. And I need to be able to map this onto something. So I need to take the outline and cut that. I'm not worrying that it's got a little bit of white showing around the edges, because when I've done my cutting and I've put my lace over the top, you're not going to see that at all. But that would have gone wrong badly. So I've got left the tea bag in the tea. Look at that. It looks like stew, doesn't it? It's stabbed my embossing tool up in that. Look, I like baby tea. You know, that really weak tea that's just, oh, it's like creamy and lovely. That's like, ugh, not very nice. Do you know, my husband will only drink coffee in the afternoon, even if it's 1 minute to 12, he won't drink coffee. He's really, really picky. But he's in my good books at the moment because he's been gardening all week. So I did some topiaries last weekend. Did some bits of topiary, and what's happened here? Something's gone wrong. Okay, it hasn't cut all the way through, which means that's because my sheets were bowing. Actually, I think I might have to get up and go and get that window. Hang on a minute. Oh, it's all right. The window's going to shut. The wind's blowing. There we go. Right. Yeah, Carl's been really good. He's been doing the garden. So I said I'd do the temporary trees. And I quite fancied it because, you know, I got my scissors out and I was like doing it like being a bit arty and sort of like I pretended I was crafting really. And so I did one whole one that's like just like a pillar, like a pointy thing, like a cone, but I couldn't do the bit at the bottom, couldn't bend down. So didn't do that bit. Then I did a twirly one. Actually, I thought that looked really good until I got to the top and it had grown so much. I didn't know what to do with it and I couldn't work out which way round to shape it. So I just give it a flat top, chop that bit off. And then thought that gives the birds somewhere to sit and land. And then I started another cone and I got bored. So I've done one and a bit. No, 1 and 2 bits. So yeah, I actually thought that was a good effort, but Carl wasn't horribly impressed, but never mind, he'll get over it. I know what's wrong. I've got no magnetic sheet, so that's why it isn't cutting as well as I'd like it to. But I'm going to put that through again, and no, I'm not. I'll risk my mat. This is what it's like crafting with me. Okay, so and I pulled that out because I wanted to show you something. I was all ready to do this. What I was going to show you. I'm just going to move this cup of tea because I think it might spill. I'm definitely not drinking it. My granny used to have her tea like that, and she used to leave the tea bag in it. It was absolutely disgusting. And when she got to the bottom, it was like, oh, really? I can make one tea bag do 4 cups. Right, so I've got no magnetic sheet in here. No cut tidy. I'm going to have to go back to old-fashioned shimming. So I'm going to take a piece of card and I'm just going to take it off here. It hasn't cut here and it hasn't cut here. I've got a couple of things I can do. I can rotate it, which will definitely make this bit cut. And I'm going to shim this bit. So I'm going to put that on there. And I'm going to pass this back through again. Unfortunately, my plates are really badly worn, but before we had cut tidy, this is what we used to have to do. We used to have to put paper shims on everything. And you get used to cutting the small pieces and putting it on the areas that haven't cut. So let me explain that to you. If I've got, let's say this is I'm cutting this. And I've got an area here that hasn't cut and an area here that hasn't cut. Well, remember, if I put a piece of card over the whole thing, all that's going to do is apply more pressure across the whole die. And if it's because my plates are slightly bowed, then that isn't going to help me because I haven't changed the shape of the plates. So I need to take just a patch of card and put it there and put it there. And you end up a bit sort of like little patches all over the place. But that's what really works. So let's take a look at this one. So I've put this one down the edge. I always know it cuts there. This was the shim I had on this side. And I can tell it's cut because it's actually cut through that piece as well. And now I'm pretty sure I can lift that off. So there we go. So I've now got, need to get all these little bits out. It's one of the things about cut tidy that I love, because you don't have to do this. Try and keep it in stock at Create and Craft, but it comes in and goes out all the time because we buy loads of it and then people stock up. So all I'm doing now is I'm just running my little embossing tool down these little holes and making a bit of a mess, but not with my card. And then get these. So get them out really nice and easily. And these are the fun bits. I don't know what you've got planned for bank holiday, but I'm actually going to be working on my Christmas collection. I'm actually quite excited about it because it's cute, and I don't do cute very often, but when I do, I absolutely love it. So I'm going to be working on that. I'll try next week if I can and give you a sneaky peek. But you might have seen it already by then. I don't know, I can't remember the dates. Right. Oh, please don't email and say, can you stop rambling? Because I know I've just realised I'm doing it, so I won't do it anymore, okay? Right, so here's my frame. So I've got this frame that's really not perfect, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to notice that when I put this frame over the top of it. So it actually really does hide that quite well. And then I'm going to take my flowers and put them to the side, and I'm ready for a sentiment just to go in here. But the difference it's made by me actually shaping those flowers, it really has made the whole thing look more finished. And the other thing that I'm looking at is, you know, pieces like this, do I actually want them to come into the card? So would I like to change the angle a little bit and let that come in so that it actually comes into the story of the card? So that's one thing to consider. The other thing is, and I'm just going to slip into this in a couple of places and just show you again a different composition, because when you get these pretty designs, don't think you have to use everything the way that you see it. You know, play with it and get different shapes. So I'm basically, I've taken off that bottom flower, but I've left those little bit of leaves. Now I need to take off this one because otherwise that doesn't look right. And I now need to shape this because that doesn't look flat at the bottom, it doesn't look right. So I'm actually just going to shape those bits around, and I'm going to bring that stem in at an angle so it looks like it was meant to be like that. Now if I put this down and I bring this one to the side, so I'm going to overlap it like that. So I'm changing the size of it. I'm going to bring these in there. Look how I've changed that composition. So it's now wider and shorter than it was. And I could go even wider and shorter, or I can bring this one all the way up to here. And again, it's changed it again. So you can really play with the compositions as well of the decoupage because it's thought through so carefully. I did a flower arranging course many years ago, and I did it because I wanted to understand more about form. And I think I've told you I've been studying the petals and actual plants properly to try and make a difference. So that was one thing I wanted to show you. Then another thing, you asked about embossing, so I'm going to show you a couple of things about embossing. Now I had that plate, you saw I missed it out the sandwich because I wanted to show you, this is my embossing folder and this is my current sandwich that I use, and I need to be able to get that to go through the machine because it is that much thicker than the die, so you can see the difference in the thickness. Something needs to happen to this sandwich for it to fit, and what happens is I pull that out, and that now is the same depth as if I had that in it. So we've taken that out, we're ready to do some embossing. So the first thing that I thought I would emboss would be a piece of vellum. I thought that would be nice for you to see the effects. And this is a very, very lightweight vellum, so I'm actually going to fold it in half and I'm going to pop that into my sandwich. But the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm also just going to put a piece of paper on top as a shim, because I know not having that magnetic shim is actually going to make this harder to go through the machine. So harder as in it's not going to give me the go. Ooh, didn't like that. Just spat it out. It's me trying to be a smarty pants. Now we go again. See, just had to trick it. Didn't trick it well enough, did I? Okay, you're tricking me. So it's all about getting the right sandwich. Let's have a little look at this. Lots of people struggle with vellum because they don't know how to glue it down, and you know, they sort of say, well, when should you use vellums? Well, let me show you. If you look at this, that's why you need vellum. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? So let me show you some way you could use this. I need to trim this down because I've got two pieces. So I'm just peeling them apart. Just gently do that. And sometimes it will break through and crack the card, but with on this occasion it isn't going to matter at all. So it's just, so I need to, I'm just going to cut on here, and it's okay me cutting on this mat because remember this is the one that, oops, that my dies cut all the time. Just get that. Little pips. This blade's a little bit blunt, but do you know it's easier to cut yourself with a blunt blade than it is a sharp one. Now I've got to get this right text so it's the right way round. And if you're looking for places to use vellum, look how beautiful this looks and how it's just softened the image. So I'm just going to put that over, put that there, hold it up so you can see it. So it's softened the image, it looks lovely, and now if I take it out, look at the difference. So if I put that, whoops, put that back in, or take it out, I actually think it looks nicer with it in. So I'm going to pop that on here. It's slightly smaller than the frame. So I'm not going to use that little pretty decorative edge. And because I've got a frame over the top, look what I can use. I can actually go round with my glue mouse, and this is enough to hold that vellum in place and get that lovely embossed feel. And if you've got a really good pattern, like I've got here, you can't even see the glue. So take a look down here and up the sides, you actually can't see the glue. That's how good it is. So now I'm going to put my frame back on. I have got a few little dots. You have to excuse I've not pushed all the little bits out, but I want to try and show you as much as I can. Why's the time go so fast? Right, tuck that bit behind. So, go. It's there, there. Just making sure it's all lined up perfectly. Okay, that's what you do with your vellums. Doesn't that look pretty? So it actually really softens the colour. So now, when we put our decoupage on, what's the most focal point of the whole design is the decoupage. So all that hard work that you did with all that shaping has actually now just paid off. So I've got my phone here, so I'm going to put you there. I'm going to take a little bit more foam, put it back off here. And I need that on there, and you're going over that piece. Just want to bring that lily over the top, and then this piece is for you, and you are going under there. And I've now got my design. So I've done my embossing, I've done my flowers, and I've actually stuck down my vellum. And it really does look pretty. Now the other thing that I could do with vellums, which is something that you'll see us do on TV, is you can give them a little bit of ink in. So to do that, I'm actually going to remove this frame because I wanted to show you what it looked like before, and I didn't press it down too hard. And I just want to hot roll that back a bit, and I'm just going to show you what happens if I ink this edge. And so I'm thinking about, let's get some ink. I'm holding the bristles quite low down so that because I'm pushing them into the ink pad. Now I'm looking at where it is here. I want to colour that little corner. So I'm literally going to do this. So sweeping the colour. So it's going to accent that corner. Not the rest of it, but just this corner. Just getting a real nice sweep. So that now, when I show you, I'll just lift my little bit of decoupage to the front. See how I've just inked that corner. Just brought the shadow into it, and it just highlights it that little bit more. So another little thing that you can be doing once you've got your embossing done and you've got your flowers embossed. So we've got two different kinds of embossing there. We've got embossing on our vellum, we've got embossing on our flowers, and then we've layered it all up to bring it together and make it into a picture. So another one of those little tricks for you. I need to find my list because you wrote me a little list of what you wanted to learn. So let me have a look at what else was on this list. Okay, so got some questions about what card to use for decoupage, card bases, charisma, all the different things that we use. So this is charisma as a picture. So this is a foundation. So for this, I would be using as a lightest 180 gram. So preferably 220 up to 250. I can feel it's quite firm, but it's not too firm. For the card base itself, I would be going for 300. So here's the difference in this. Look at how the flex is. So that's my 300. This is my 220. So you can see the difference in that flex and the spring. Also means this will hold its shape better. So I can literally a finger and it will hold it. And even if I put something on the front, it's still going to hold it. Once you start getting to this kind of weight and you put a finger on, even the slightest weight at the top can make it bow at the sides. Now charisma, the actual images that you work with, so that's what I've got here. I've actually on this one, this is again, this is on a 250, but I go right down to a 120 when I'm working with charisma, because sometimes I want to put 2 or 3 pieces together, and I put the pieces of paper together and I cut them all in one go. And all you have to do is what I did when I separated this, is just peel the layers away. And if you've got a lot of layers on your flowers, so you imagine if I'm layering up all of these and I'm going to 5 or 6 layers, and that's all 250. So let's say I've got 6 layers at 250, that's 1,500. If I've got 6 layers at 120, I'm only at 720. I think my maths is right. So it makes it does make a difference to the weight, but also it makes a difference to how much it curves. Sometimes I'll use 250 on the base and then lighter weight, so I layer up, particularly if I've got flowers where I want them to be freestanding. And if you've got a flower that's as delicate as this, then definitely go for a 180 or a 220. Don't do your decoupage out of 300, it will be too thick and you'll be disappointed with how chunky it looks. But this one, I would use a 180 on or 200, because you want that bit of weight. The 120 is just not enough. And the other thing is, if you've got pieces where they're coming over the edge of the card, so I've got the edge of that leaf coming over the edge, if that's lighter weight, it's going to get creased. So think about it logically, think about the way that you would work with it. If I'm doing card bases, and particularly if it's a shaped base and it's got lots of different angles to it and creases, again 300 GSM, because that's a great foundation. But then your mats and layers, bring them down a level, bring them down to 250. It does make a difference. trying to think what else you wanted to know. Oh yes, with vellums, you were asking me about different types of glues. Now, there is a vellum adhesive available, and what that does is when you put it on and you stick two pieces together, it actually is as invisible as it gets. On lighter weight cards, you will always get a better result. On a darker card, I'm just going to work with this little piece, I don't want to waste that. So on a darker card, it's hard for you to get rid of it completely. Because what you get is a bit of a shadow, because you've got a light paper and then a dark card underneath. So I'm just going to take a lid off because I'm going to use my finger. And if I spread my vellum adhesive so that I'm actually spreading it evenly, so I've got just a light little spread there. When you turn it over, you can see that colour. You can see where it's almost like a piece of fabric that's got wet. If I put that onto white card, once that's dry, you will not see that at all. You can, let me see if I can, I've done it too quickly. You just do a bit more so you can see it, because that's gone perfect. When you want it to go wrong, it doesn't, does it? Right, I think you can see it there. So you can see a bit of it there, but on this side where I've glued it, you actually can't see the glue. You can see where it's pulled the vellum to the cardstock, but you actually cannot see dirty glue or wet glue. And just to show you how good it is, it's actually torn the paper. But now I'm going to put it on the dark and you'll see what I mean. Look at this. That's paper where it tore it off before, but look at this. So even with that little bit of adhesive, with the pressure that you get, you're going to actually see it. And this is one of the best adhesives that there is. If you are working with vellums, then think about your design. Be clever with your design. Where can you anchor it? So when I was planning this, I knew, and remember I said, oh, I've cut that wrong, or it's gone wrong at the beginning, because if I'd cut that out of that first shape and all I'd had was that middle panel, I'd have had to glue inside the panel, you'd have seen it. But because I chose to bring it to the outside, I was able to cover the glue with the frame. So think about where you're going to glue it. If you didn't have a frame around there, I could glue it behind the decoupage. That would be another place to put it. But work on lighter cardstock, because on lighter cardstock, even when you've got big blobby bits, which I've got up there now, not that dirty mark, but it actually does up here and here, it does disappear. On dark card, it's always going to be a challenge. Okay, how long have I been talking to you? Oh my goodness me. Right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you one quick story. I've got to decide what it's going to be. And then, oh, I can't tell you that one. I know what I'll do. I'll tell you this one. I'm sure I did this at the weekend. Yeah, okay. One quick story, I'm going, right? So I'm making, because I'm baking a lot at the moment. I made a carrot cake before I came to work this morning. So I was making, this, I can't pronounce it. So it's a pie and they're pastry at the bottom. So it's puff pastry at the bottom and then they come up in like a little dome and they're called pitheries or pitherbees or something like that. It begins with a P. So I've made the pastry, got all my pastry ready, and inside you put a mousse, a fish mousse. So, oh dear, oh God, I've got to confess now. I've just remembered the other bit. So I got a deal online. I got this email from a fishmonger that said he'd got a special deal on lobsters, so I bought a lobster. So the lobster came and I was like, oh, this is really nice. We'll have a special dinner, hence the special pie. So it was already cooked. So I got the clipper things out and I was breaking it all up. And actually I thought I'll just test it, see if it's all right, because it was already cooked. Well, I started with a little bowl of it because you don't get a lot of meat and it wasn't a big lobster, it was a little one. So I got a little bowl of meat like this, but by the time I'd finished, there was about that much left because I kept testing it. So I'm thinking that's now not enough for the pie. So I went and got a piece of cod out the freezer, and I'd already got some prawns because I'm going to make some prawns with it. So I started off, and it said you needed to chop it all finely. So I got out, I've got a little grinder thing that I got free when I bought a food mixer, and you put your nuts and stuff in it and it grinds it to like either chops or grinds. So I put the fish in it, that worked really well, and it made it into like mixture. And then it said to whisk the cream, so I put the cream in it. Well, the cream started coming out the cracks at the side because this little machine's quite old, but when it's dry stuff you don't notice the cracks. So there's cream going everywhere, so I'm like thinking this isn't working, and I need to whisk the cream and get it into the fish so I can get it into the pie. So I thought, I know what I'll do. This is not a top tip, and do not do this at home. I will take the whisk and I'm going to put it into the top of the cream pot, because that will then whisk the cream and I'll have the double cream in the pot. Why wouldn't you think that was going to work? Except the whisk, I pressed the turbo button, it picked the pot up, it spun it round like it was in the middle of the washing machine and flicked it all over the kitchen. So I was absolutely covered. And you know these little dots, this lot here, this, imagine that, all over Carl's coat, the window, the cupboards, the floor, absolutely everywhere. So I'm like thinking, oh my goodness me, I've got to get this cleaned up before he gets in. He's going to go, what have you done, you silly thing? You shouldn't have done that. So I'm like, open the door and shout, Darcy, Betty, come in here, come and lick all this up. So the next thing is, Carl walked in and he went to the dogs, he went, get out you two. You get those. He says, you, meaning me, sit down. And he goes, is that all the lobster that came? Well, I'm ringing that fishmonger and telling him that's not good value for money. Stay still while I clean up this mess. And he actually cleaned it all up for me while I sat there. And then said, please don't ring the lobster man because I've ate it. Because he was going to ring him and tell him he wanted a refund. And I would have been in so much trouble. But if you had seen the state of the kitchen, and the worst thing is, the next day, it smelled sour. It was disgusting because it had gone absolutely everywhere. However, my fish pie was absolutely yummy. So I actually think at the end of it, I got forgiven. He was quite happy about it. And there is a picture of me somewhere. I'll try and find it. In fact, I know where it is. I'll post it on Facebook and let you see what I look like. That's dripping in cream. It was all over me, all over my face. It was just everywhere. And I was mortified because I couldn't get my bottom hand off the turbo button fast enough because the pot didn't know whether to grab the pot or grab the machine. It was just going around like this. So don't do that at home because it doesn't work. I'll see you next week. Have a lovely time. Stay safe, everybody. And thank you all so much for joining me. Bye.